Welcome to all of you who's looking our streaming. Looking at the streaming. I'm glad to present a very strong panel who's here with us today, consisting of broad representatives from the contemporary design scene here in Copenhagen. So welcome to you. We have Nicholas Oldroy with us, who's co-founder of Moebe, a design company established in 2016. Then we have Joachim Pedersen from Menu. Menu is the old boy in class today, established in 1978, right? Welcome to you. We have Thomas Ibsen with us, creative director and partner at Please Wait to Be Seated, which was founded in 2014. Then we have Kristine with us, Juul Pedersen, who is senior designer and sustainability manager at Ferm Living, a 14-year-old company here in Copenhagen. And last but not the least, we have Kasper Salto with us today, a very experienced industrial designer who has been in the field for more than 30 years. So we might call him a design expert. But thank you, all of you, for coming today.
Thank you.
We're here to talk about design, Danish Design 2.0. What can be characteristic about design now, leaning up on a very broad or long heritage of design in Denmark? We have a strong tradition. All of you probably here today know the story that started back in the 1920s, going forward with the Danish modern movement from the 1940s and 50s and 60s. Which was a furniture and interior design, houseware design movement with very clean, minimalistic design, which all assembles the Danish way of living. So we have a strong tradition where the design focus on both the classical furniture craftsmanship put together with new kind of materials, a strong focus on proportions, and also how it can support the requirements of the human body. So that's kind of the heritage that we have. That also put together with the new, back in the 60s, the new ways of producing furniture that kind of allowed for a stronger focus on form than only functionality. So going from then to now, the present, what does the contemporary design look like today? Looking back and reflecting on the Danish heritage in design, but also looking forward and taking into account all the different challenges and demands that we meet globally today. For example, climate change, digitalization, urbanization, and of course also the big challenge that we're all facing today, the COVID-19. So, do we need to look at design? How is it built today? What does it look like? And yeah, that's what the focus is today. So I have asked the panel here to each take 5 minutes and do some reflections on how their design reflect both the Danish design heritage and at the same time meet some of the global demands in terms of climate change and etc. And what their design then look like. So without further ado, I'll give the word to you, Nicholas, please.
Majken, thank you very much. I think the easiest way for me to do this is to talk over products. I brought one with me, and I brought one that I think kind of tells pretty well what we try to do with Moebe, at Moebe. It looks like this. It's a frame. I'm going to take it step by step. It comes flat packed. That's cool. It's in brown cardboard. Take it home, put that in the recycling bin. That's awesome. And then we make things in a way, we're always looking to try and find out how do you bring different materials and different elements together in the products that we create. We're not just happy enough that those lines or those curves look super fantastic. It's not good enough. It has to be able to be put together in a way, it's a word I hate, but smart. You know, you can glue something, weld it, fine. But it's a little bit toxic. you're going to be shipping air. It's not super great. So we try and go component-based. So with the frame, it's a bit like this. You have 4 loose lists, 2 pieces of plexi, and a rubber band on the outside that holds the construction together and is also how you hang it. And when I say it tells a lot of things, it tells things about, for instance, okay, cool. This list breaks, no problem. You can put the list in the recycling and we send you a new list. You don't have to throw away the whole frame. It talks about things like material choices, you know. We use plastic on the frame. Plastic is the devil, right? We all hate plastic. It's ruining everything. And it is, but it's also an amazing material, and it was the exact right choice, we believe, for this product. It's a material that's using less carbon to produce, significantly less than glass. It's lighter, so when you ship it, it's also better in a carbon sense. And it can be much longer lasting. It's much less likely to break. And if you get a scratch, it's cool. You can buy creams that we've started also supplying, where you can remove the scratches just by rubbing it with a bit of cream. So that's easy. But so what's important to us is that you have products, or you build products. We have shelving systems, mirrors, all this kind of stuff that are able to be repaired, that are going to last.
Thank you, Moebe.
Thank you.
And Joachim, welcome to you from Menu.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you please reflect a bit about how Menu is working with both the Danish design heritage and reflections about that, but still moving forward into the new world, if we could call it that?
That was a good answer. Now I'm reflecting more on your answer than on my own answer. I think from Menu, you can say, taking the first question on how are we kind of, looking at it now, reflecting on the past, we're very focused to produce products that are sustainable in a lifetime, you can say, so quality, the form language, something that we want to live with for a lot of years. You know, you can never say that a piece will become a classic before it has lived its time out. It's become a very pop word to use, classics, but it's really something that the time will show, and it's impossible to say whether it will or will not. But at least we are trying to work with some elements that we think will last, where simplicity is. If you, of course, all of you know our collection, so I haven't taken any pieces with me, but that's one of the pillars that we're working with, trying to see if we can make something that hopefully in 20, 30, 40 years will be something we look back at. While we're also reissuing old classics now, we are this 3 days of design relaunching some American modernist mid-century designs from a guy called Arthur Umanoff, which is, I think, a way for us to combine an international approach within the kind of our Danish brand and our Danish foundation, where we basically are rooted here. But I think also coming back to what we are doing well as a country, I think we've always been very well traveled, if you can say that. So, you know, taking the inspiration from all over the world and kind of making it our own. We have some very heritage materials that we often go to, for example, oak and so on, that I think are somehow influencing a lot of brands and thereby also kind of connecting a lot of brands, especially from Scandinavia. But I think taking, you know, cultural bits and pieces from around the world and mixing with our own philosophy, and then designing pieces or products that can last.
Thomas, please.
Hello.
Wait to be seated, but the word is yours.
We're all waiting.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. Well, there's already been said a lot of very, what's the right word, clever and right things for, no. I'm going to start in a little different place, I think. You know, I used to be a photographer, so I'm not really a skilled designer. That means I'm not a designer at all. I'm not a production engineer. I'm not a guy that have learned about branding in some business school. Basically, what I've learned from being a photographer is using my eyes. And when I started, please wait to be seated, it's basically started upon an idea of, okay, if all these great companies can do this and I can shoot all these good pictures for them, I need to get on the other side and do some of these designs. And of course, that when I started that out, it was all about the design. It was really about what can I see with my 2 eyes, and what was everything below that I didn't know anything about really. I was basically had no clue. So we started it up, and finally, you know, as the process went on, I figured out, God, there's so much to know, there's so much to do, and there's so many mistakes to make. And now we come to you know, now the years has passed, and we have a collection of, I don't know, 25 pieces. And we have decided to not, you know, of course we stand, I'll come back to that, with the heritage, but we want to be an international brand, really. So we try to work with international designers, and we try to work with young designers. That means a new generation. And the reason for that is really that you know, I'm 53-year-old, and I have kids who are 20, 21 is my son, actually, yesterday. But anyway, I can just see that how they have a completely different approach to the designs that I think is nice in my generation. And I grew up crawling all around on Wigner's China chair and Arne Jacobsen's chairs, you know, and in my home. My father was in furniture as well, so they were tipping over and breaking, and you know, they were just, so the heritage is a part of where I come from. It's so deep inside of, I guess, a lot of us in Denmark, this whole heritage. And today, when you're looking into what is this sustainability, and what can we do to make it a better world, because there is a change, and we need to make a change somehow globally in all perspectives. And of course, we as a company look into what can we do, and you know, we try to look into materials, and how can we transport less, and how can we have less plastic and wrappings, and you know, all these, like I guess all of us do all the time. But I think we have realized that really talking to my children and to their friends, you know, we don't even know what is to come when it comes to sustainability. I mean, we think of design as being number one. You know, you have a good design, we do everything to make a nice design, and that's why we bring it to the market. But really, what is, and then right after that, we talk sustainability. How can we produce? How can we do, you know, transport and so on? But I think, or we've been talking about in our company, we think it's going to be sustainability first. Within, I don't know if it's 10 years or 5 years or 20 years, I don't know. But at some point, I think there's going to be a demand of saying, okay, it's not only good for the eyes, it has to be good for the generations to come.
Exactly, especially when you look into the whole consumption generation, where, I mean, you have the classics you were just mentioning, them, Wiener, Arne Jacobsen, etc. They still live, they still have their value when you go out to buy a new chair, right? So sustainability is many things, I think.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
But I agree that it will become a design parameter for us in the future, and maybe already.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thomas, and welcome, Kristine, to you.
Thank you. Yeah, again, a lot of nice words and good topics have been said. At Ferm Living, Ferm Living is 14 years old, and it started out with wallpaper, so it's a totally different thing, and had involved into this more and more furniture, bigger items, Ferm. So we have a broad range of products, and of course we have this topic on sustainability. How are we working with this green transition? What is the best way to do it? And as Thomas said, the global mega trend is that this movement is taking over the next big wave, and we are not even coping with sustainability. We are actually going to think even more in building back better, as you just mentioned. Even after this COVID-19, it's the sustainability topic has become even more important. And it's not about asking, why do we do this? It's about how do we work with this? So that is the whole period, the phase we are in at Ferm Living, talking about this on all levels, from even the small products to engagement internally, the movement in the company, the way you behave in the company, or how you actually do in your daily life when you're not at work. So it's more in the balance of a life balance, you can say, instead of you have your work and then you do some sustainability at home, sorting out your trash. But it's the whole human you need to talk to. So how do you do that when you have a lot of products? You also have a business running. So it's all about doing this, doing good and doing well. So doing good is doing something better in what you do. Of course, we look at our supply chain, our materials, where do everything start? How is the design process? Can we think of doing this in another way? Can this be a disassembled? Can it be of only one material instead of 3 materials combined? All these kind of thoughts starting already in the design process. But of course, we also work very close with our suppliers, our co-workers, we call them. It's all about being transparent and trying to educate forth and back and pushing them to do better or offer us new solutions. So there's a lot of levels in it, but it's a lot about being honest and transparent, we believe, and that comes from a heart of the business. That's what we want to do. Welcome.
Last but not the least, welcome to Kasper.
Thank
Independent designer over the last 30 years. Welcome.
It sounds a lot. And I think so many good things have been said, so actually maybe I shouldn't say anything. But I will, of course. And I hear things like greenwashing. I think that's a really interesting word, because greenwashing is really bad. And of course, a lot of businesses are talking about sustainability in all their ways to market a product, and that's too bad. But I think my theme after hearing all this good stuff is maybe to focus on one thing, and that could be the approach of the designer. How can we? I'm not talking about the companies that are producing and outsourcing to the right places and the materials and all that. I'm actually talking about the very beginning, and the very beginning can be different. It can be a company that is contacting you to design an object. It can also be yourself inventing or finding out what the world needs. And I think both of the ways are very interesting, and I want to focus on the, you can say, the very beginning is interesting, because as a designer we have actually got a lot of power in how we approach a new thing. It can be furniture, it can be anything. My own approach, just to mention that, is to make, I have always made not very much, but I really try to use a lot of time making my products, because I really hate putting a lot of effort in my things, and then I see them on the market for 1 year and then they goes out again. I know many of you have tried that maybe also, but at least I have tried that sometimes, and it's really, I really hate that thought of working on something for 1 year, maybe 2 years, maybe not even maybe say half a year. That's also a lot of time that you just. So I'm talking about going into the first stages of a project, and it can be you thinking about the world needs this, and then you're starting from that, and then you are really doing a good research, and you are making an analysis of the things. Bottom line is it's like wine. I mean, the longer wine is put on the shelf, often the better it becomes. And I think it goes for design as well, that the more time you care about this item, you go around it and you say, is it good enough? Can you take the cork off, and can you replace it if it is broken? And also what you talked about, Moebe, is, I think that's really the future of design. Make less, but make better. And I think make better is not so easy actually, because we see more and more companies. I've been around for 30 years, as you said, so I've seen the furniture industry going from the old school, you can call it, and now you see a lot of new companies, and also big ones, that are making very interesting stuff actually, and the young guys, they love it. But maybe sometimes I have the feeling, it's just a feeling that maybe it goes a little too fast, because the bottom line of the company is important, of course. But I think maybe we should take a little step back. And I'm only talking about the designers because I cannot talk on behalf of the companies, of course. But as a designer, I think it's really important to really see what is needed out there. I mean, if you do another chair, please make the very best one of them all, and also the one that can stay on the ground for the longest time, because throwing out is in my view the worst thing that can happen.
I think one point that I would like to dig into is the whole design 3.0, that we are looking into something that is just not new design, but where sustainability is a design parameter in making new products. I was wondering if you as designers or companies experience that sustainability can kind of take over from the aesthetics or the functionality in the designs. Do you experience it as a problem, or is it easy solved?
I think you have to, if I can take that, not allow it to take over, right? I think it has to. Myself, I'm an architect, and the two of the chaps who are sitting here, I started with an architect and a cabinet maker as well, and we come from that background, we come from that design background. So when we're thinking of a new product, it's not a by thought. I think the problem comes if it is an afterthought. We have this great product, okay, we need to make it environmental, cool, we're going to do some bamboo, plastic, molded stuff. It's not really environmental, is it? You know, I think you have to bring it. It has to be part of the concept fundamentally, and I don't think it has to be too crazy hard, really. You know, we're making things in oak, aluminium, plastic. It's the same materials, but and we're not perfect. You know, it would probably be better just not to make anything, right? But the whole thing about if you can make something that doesn't get thrown away, then that's all the better, because hopefully you take off 10 other frames which would have got thrown away in the lifespan they had yours. But yeah, it can't be a plug-in.
Is it a dilemma in menu, or do you easily come around it?
It's a big topic, of course. I think it's maybe referring a little bit to what Kasper said. I think you shouldn't. The world has enough chairs; it will survive if you don't make your new shell chair or miniature wooden chair. I think that's important to know. So I think if you go into design brief to make something sustainable, I don't think that's a reason why enough to do it. I think it's definitely a parameter, and I agree with you, Thomas, that it should actually be something where you maybe look first at sustainability and then you look at the design. But I think foremost you also need to have a function and a reason to make it. And I think what we experience, I mean, from our little world, now just taking it very personally into moving into our new place where we are combining hotel with restaurant, with cafe and so on. We had a need for different kinds of furniture that could, I mean, have different angles so it didn't make a mess. I mean, this way of looking at rooms, because also now we've seen that for a lot of years now, but office and home are melding together and so on. So I think making products that are talking into our lifestyle now, because we don't live the same as we did 50 years ago, and I think that also changed the design. And then I think it's important to look at, okay, so when we are, I mean, the wood, maybe FSC, and it needs to be knocked down, because otherwise, it doesn't make sense not to be able to do that, or stackable, whatever it might be. But I don't think making a sustainable product is a reason to make it, if that you can say that. I think it's more the reason behind it, the function, and then you should definitely do your best to make it sustainable.
As sustainable as possible. Yeah. I think you're right that you have to look at the need and demand for the product first. That must be the most sustainable way of going around design. Is it something that you in Please Wait to Be Seated have thought about, or have you had any obstacles when wanting to meet a demand or making a product where you couldn't find the right materials to do it?
Well, the funny thing is sometimes the material right in front of you.
Yeah.
And you just think that all chairs should be in ash or oak. But in all of Scandinavia, we have so many pine trees. And nobody uses pine. Nobody, really. I mean, a few. And when you say pine tree, you think about these beds from the 70s, these canising, as they call it in Danish, or shelvings or stuff like that. But you don't see many of the brands actually using just pine wood from Sweden. You know, what they do in Sweden is when they cut the pine, they sow new immediately, and it grows really fast. So there is also, sometimes it's right in front of us. And I guess all of us have had oak and ash and, you know, more expensive wood that comes from Austria or Italy, north of Italy or Germany. The latest chair we did, which we're just actually introducing now for in 3D's Design, is actually this little, actually it's a collection of 3 sizes of a bar stool. But we decided to actually try to produce it in pine. And the good thing is it's quite cheap to produce. It's very light. It doesn't weigh so much. It's very easy. And it's actually the way we got away with doing this was actually making a nice chair. It looks like it's from Japan or something. but it's actually from wood from the backyard, really. You know. Yeah. So sometimes my point is sometimes there is things right in front of you, and you don't have to, you know, maybe just. I mean, there's a lot to read, a lot to know, and a lot of investigation to do the right thing. But sometimes it's right in front of you as well.
In Ferm living, do you look into the I'm trying to get a hold on the whole future-proofing the products. One thing being the sustainability, one thing being incorporating all the global demands, taking inspiration from all over the world into account. How do you balance the different things? One thing being sustainable, one thing being contemporary and meeting the demands, and still holding on to a heritage here in Denmark.
So you can say when we start up the design process, it often starts with the word. And at this moment in the post-COVID-19, it's a lot about stillness. It's a lot about being present. So we go into the more emotional way of, trying to approach these themes. So we talk a lot about the situation we want to design to. So we design to a situation where you use your home as a where we use a lot of tactility. That makes you help you being present when you come home, when you sit in your couch. It's important what kind of upholstery you have, what kind of carpet. And of course, it's all more products in the world. But as I mentioned earlier, it is about doing better, getting on the journey, doing less, but still being good and do a good business.
Kasper, I would like to ask you, with your experience, can you kind of identify how the movement has been in Danish design from obviously the Danish modern back in the 60s towards now in like 2 minutes? Thank you.
That's a good, that's a very big one, but I'll try. But I think one thing we can learn, if I can talk about that, from the 60s and before, of course, is that so many products, even though we as designers are not always so keen on hearing about a new Arne Jacobsen thing that is taken up from the drawer, we can learn that there must be a reason also, not only the storytelling, which is so important, but of course it's important to tell a story about a thing. But I think the reason that these things still are so relevant, and I think that's a good word here, is that they are actually made with a lot of care and a lot of craftsmanship and a lot of thoughts. I mean, they really used a lot of time designing their things at that time, and I think that's one of the reasons that they are still here. Of course, the materials and the craftsmanship is also very important, at least as important, but I have to go back to the first stage and say that it's also important that you are, as designer, that you really are not giving up on looking how people are sitting, looking how people are hanging pictures on the walls, and keep on inventing and try to make better things. Because in my view, if I have to put it very short, design is about take something and make it better. That's the very short version of it.
And would that be characteristic for Danish design in general, you think?
I really think so. I think, and also you asked me about the 60s and the 50s and the 40s. I mean, that's the DNA, I think, of that time. Is that is still why we are struggling as young designers, also young designers, with coming into the companies, because they always have, oh, sorry, we have an Arne Jacobsen chair here, we have to put on the market first. And that's fine. I mean, it's fine, but it's also a problem for the younger guys, you know. So one thing could be for the younger guys to really make something good shit.
That can last.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And create a demand, maybe.
Exactly.
Even.
Yeah.
Can I just say something?
Yes, please.
I'm just thinking there is also the other side of like the consumer, the people buying things, and there's been a pressure for many years of design, especially for chairs. You know, the price are becoming lower and lower and lower and lower, and people expect high quality, really, really high quality for almost nothing. So that's also, you know, something that we, I suppose, as at least some of us as companies, feel all the time. You want to do good, you want to do something which is really nice and it's done in the right ways, but that costs money. That means that the business you can make out of it, you have to take into consideration, and that makes it difficult. So I think there's also, and hopefully it will come as well with, you know, like new type of cars and new type of energy and all that. You know, maybe there will be some. Hopefully there will be some reflectment from the consumer to actually want to pay for things which are well made and done sufficiently to be able to last for a long time.